Fantasy football, you have to ask one question. Don't you deserve a fighting chance? And now, welcome to Fighting Chance Live with your hosts, Kevin Tompkins and Scott Fishbowl 9 winner, Gary Haddow.
Good evening. Merry Christmas Eve. Happy holidays to everybody. I'm Kevin Tompkins of FightingChanceFantasy.com. As always, my good friend, my compadre, my comrade in arms, Gary Haddow. Merry Christmas, my friend. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic. It's Christmas Eve. It's always a fun time to maybe take a little break from everything, talk some football, and I'm just excited to be here, man. Merry Christmas to you and Aaron.
Thank you very much. And yeah, Merry Christmas to you and Teresa. We will, I'm excited because we've pretty much been Christmased out here. We celebrate today. So glad to take a little break and dive into some football here.
Hell yeah. Let's do it. A lot of questions. I mean, it's finals for so many people. If you're lucky enough to be there, I think most people probably are in the finals somewhere across their spectrum of leagues and whatnot. So many questions. Yeah. So let's just jump into it with probably the biggest question mark, I think, going into the week, and that's Ben Roethlisberger. In a primetime game on Monday night, he looked terrible, and I don't know what's going on there, if it's age. So before we even jump into the game, like, what do you think is going on with Ben? Like, do you think it's age? Do you just think it's just the offense is sputtering?
It's probably a combination of everything. I mean, you're looking at Ben Roethlisberger's last 5 games, he's thrown an interception. The team hasn't scored more than 20 points since week 11 either. So add in the fact that you've got Deontay Johnson with his drops issues. They're working in James Washington, seemingly ahead of Chase Claypool, though that did change a little bit last week with Claypool getting the usage, the routes run over Washington. Yeah. Juju, there's just a lot of questions here going on. Them not wanting to run the ball, not wanting to hashtag establish the run. That's certainly got something to play with it too. And they're also, James Conner hasn't been healthy. Benny Snell has been okay in spurts. Just a lot going on with Pittsburgh, and it's easy to peg it on one guy, but Roethlisberger really hasn't done anybody any favors either.
Yeah, the interceptions are one of the strangest things. I mean, just to see him going, like you said, 5 straight games, 6 interceptions over those games. Probably should have been more, I'm guessing. I know Cincinnati probably had like 3 dropped interceptions. They just seemed like Cincinnati they had their number pegged, and they knew what plays they were going to be called. Like, everything was just so terrible. And at least like the Steelers seemed to start looking a little bit better, at least for a couple drives when they started running the ball more. You just become so stagnant and one-dimensional if you're not going to run the ball, So that being said, I mean, that was a Cincinnati team that is terrible, the top 5 pick, all that stuff. So this week they're going against Indianapolis at home. This is a massive game. The Steelers are for sure making the playoffs like that. They've already clinched that, but are they going to have home field advantage at all? Or they could potentially lose the division, and Indianapolis is playing for its life. They are not in the playoffs yet. And so they are have to play and try and win out to make sure, it's a tough AFC. So with this game, we have a really tough defense, very stout, at least, defense. And if they're not going to be running the ball, that's going to allow them to drop back. It looks like Eric Ebron, I think, is still going to be out, or he will be out with his back issue that came up when he got injured against Cincinnati. So with Ben, you have him at QB 21. All right, to you, is there a world where you're starting him? A Q2B, super flex leagues, because I can't talk right now. Are you starting him there?
It's tough. I don't think I can bring myself to start him. If I have him as my only option, I mean, you look at waivers, and there's got to be guys like, Trubisky, even Tua could be out there. But those are 2 guys I would definitely start over Roethlisberger right now, just the way that offense is going, the way he's going. Against Indianapolis, I mean, he is a non-starter. Pardon the pun.
I get it. It's true. I mean, it works both ways. Double entendre there. And then you mentioned Deontay. So I want to know, Deontay, Juju, and Chase Claypool, even James Washington potentially as a dart throw. Are you starting any of them, or are you fading all of them? How would you rank them if you are interested in starting, however many it is that your answer is?
I mean, I'm fully confident in Deontay Johnson. I mean, that's the guy right now you've got the least questions about, and that we can comfortably slot him into lineups. He was 8 for 59 with a touchdown. He was the only functioning part of this offense last week. So I think I understand the trepidation, and I had trepidation. You were talking me off that ledge with him last week, but I don't think, that you can't sit him right now the way he's going. Juju, probably more of a wide receiver 3 flex play. Yeah. Claypool, more of a flex play because, he is ceding a little bit to James Washington there. So that's going to cap the upside. I understand they want to get all these receivers involved, but I just don't understand for the life of me why you're taking a guy like Chase Claypool. And yeah, he's a rookie, but look at all the rookie receivers just absolutely blowing up the league, and a guy that probably he's right up there in just his athletic ability and his matchup ability. I don't know how you can take him off the field. That's probably a guy. I mean, they won 11 games in a row and everything was going right with the Steelers, and then they've just hit a wall these last 3 games, losing to Washington, Buffalo, Cincinnati. I would say probably you're looking at a 4th straight loss here with the Colts. So it's not going to get any easier for them, but I think the only real passing game option that you could trust right now and put any sort of faith in is Deontay Johnson.
Completely agree. I'm excited for Deontay's future, excited for him this week, next week. I'm always going to start him if I have him. And I will just want to say, we're going to talk about it much more in the offseason. I'm terrified for what's going to happen with Ben in the offseason, if they're even going to bring him back. He has a huge cap hit, all that stuff. And in a lot of dynasty startups, COVID startups, as I would call them this past year, I was very happy taking Ben because I was like, I'll get 2 solid years out of him. Look at that pass catching core. Like, they're a great team. And now I think that they might be nuts to bring him back, but hey, we'll cross that bridge down the road. So let's move on from Ben to what was an early season MVP front runner. He looked absolutely amazing and he was on red hot on fire, and now he's just cooled down so much. And that's Russell Wilson. I don't know what to do with him. I think he is probably my most confusing quarterback play this week. Like, I have him going. It's in a consolation, like not in the finals, but in the 3rd, 4th place. And so it does matter if I win, because if I win, I get the higher pick. And I just don't know if I trust him enough. So Russell's going against the Los Angeles Rams. The Rams are, I think, the number 1 defense against wide receivers, against quarterbacks, and I think they're top 3 against running backs. And it's a divisional matchup, so you have no idea what's going to happen. Are you willing to start Russell Wilson?
Not if I can help it. I kind of lump him, and I would say he's more upside than Ben, but it's kind of the same thing where if there's other options out there that are more attractive, I keep going back to the well with Mitch Trubisky, to Baker Mayfield, guys like that. Baker's going to play the Jets, and I think the way the Browns offense is going, I think that's a start I would much rather make than Russell Wilson right now. It's crazy to say that here in week 16, considering the absolute monstrous start that he had. But right now, the only thing that works in that offense as far as the passing game is Russell Wilson to DK. And now that's not even a sure thing. Yeah. Wilson's been quarterback 15 since week 10. And yeah, you're right. The Rams have given up the fewest that's allowed the fewest fantasy points per game this season, more than the Steelers, or less than the Steelers. So if I have to start Russell Wilson, I understand it. You just got to bank on any kind of efficiency. Yeah. But against this team, the way everything's going, I'm not super confident in Russell Wilson right now.
It's going to be a rough offseason if you start Mitch, you start Tua over Wilson. Wilson goes off, and those two guys just do what we know that their floor is. But Mitch's matchup against the Jags, I mean, hell, he probably should have been someone we were talking about more specifically here. But he's been playing well. The only difficulty with him is that David Montgomery, God, he is just on fire right
He's
now.
on another level right now.
It's fantastic. The downside of it, just for anyone that's a Bears fan, is just like, what the hell are they going to do now? Are they gonna pivot? Are they going to stick to what they're doing with Nagy, with Mitch? I have no idea. So,
He might have earned himself another contract, Trubisky.
I am kind of leaning that way. That they'll probably bring him back. Maybe get in a developmental project or something, but they got to figure out something. I think the way he's playing, you officially take out like trading for Matt Ryan, trading for Matt Stafford, that type of thing, just because what's the point of paying all that extra money when they barely have any? And you're going to get maybe an incremental upside or incremental floor above Mitch. But I mean, the upsides are pretty damn similar. Like, dude can go off, and he hasn't really had an insane rushing game yet where, he's rushed for a few touchdowns and, 60 plus yards. So, and we know he's always capable of that.
Yep.
All right. So on to another perennial, just kind of baller. And we talked about him, I believe, last week, but there are some repeat names on this show because they are just still question marks. And that's Tom Brady at the head coachless Detroit Lions, which is going to be a wild thing to see. Darrell Bevell, for anyone who doesn't know, there was a COVID situation, and now I think their defensive coordinator, a bunch of their assistants, and Darrell Bevell, and I think even their offensive coordinator are all going to be out. It looks like the QB coach might be their head coach for this week. But Tom Brady, I don't know what to do with him. Like, he has a nice floor, but what the hell is his ceiling? Like, he hasn't really gone off for a game. Last time he had 3 touchdowns was against Kansas City. That was 3 weeks ago. And I mean, since week 7, he's had a 3 2-touchdown games, a 0 touchdown, and 2 threes. So again, you got a floor, but I would just be so nervous about that ceiling. And we should say that Ronald Jones is out, still on the COVID list. He has been declared out for this week, and they play Saturday. So what are you doing with Tom Brady this week? Especially just in talking about Russell Wilson or Big Ben, if you had those, who's going to be your favorite start out of that group?
It's still Brady over those two. We saw last week against Atlanta, they got behind, and Brady had to throw the ball 45 times to will that team back to win. Threw for 390 yards and 2 touchdowns. What are the chances that the Buccaneers are going to get down to Detroit? Slim to none, I would say. Anything can happen, but if you're playing the probabilities, that's not the likeliest of scenarios. So I would say you're probably looking at something like week 14 where Tampa Bay against Minnesota. He only had to throw the ball 23 times, barely just under 200 yards and 2 touchdowns. You're probably looking at the quarterback one fringes there for Brady. If something screwy happens and Detroit gets up like 10-0, yeah, you'll probably see the upside for Tom Brady there against just him against an overmatched line secondary where he could get some of that upside. But I don't think he's going to have to throw the ball a lot for this. I think this is a Leonard Fournette game with Ronald Jones out. I think they're just going to ride him if everything goes to plan.
Yeah. I wish somebody smarter than me to look into the deep dive on these numbers. I always think teams want to get their offenses going, heading into playoffs,
Yeah.
I don't know if that's really a thing or not. If, like, when I say offenses, I just think the quarterback, and I think they're going to want to get him going. I think this will be one of those first half Brady games. I wouldn't count out Matt Stafford to at least keep them in a little bit, especially if it's going to be their QB coach, and they might just go a little QB happy in this game. But Brady is definitely my favorite start out of these 3. And again, this is one of those where I bring him up because there's a question mark, but I think I would still be comfortable starting him, especially assuming that my roster, outside of what Mahomes, I don't know a quarterback that every week I'm just saying I have a competitive advantage over the whoever I'm facing, because other than Mahomes, everybody else seems to have up and down weeks. Even the running quarterbacks and whatnot seem to be taking their lumps every once in a while. So I'm going to roll with Brady.
Put some respect on Aaron Rodgers.
Sorry, you're right, dude. I honestly did totally forget about it.
The MVP.
I do actually agree that he should be the MVP. I completely agree, especially this week, man. I feel like they're just gonna that game against the Titans. I would take
That could be an up and
plus.
down. Yeah, exactly. And with Brady, I will just say this too. I mean, any time that you can take the ball out of the 43-year-old quarterback's hands and make where he doesn't have to throw the ball, 45 times, I think they're going to take that. So I think, if they get up, they can give Fournette 30 carries and then give McCoy scraps, give, whoever scraps.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, so I think that they're still going to beat the hell out of the Lions. I think the line when I took it was at 9.5, and I felt very comfortable with that.
Yeah.
All right, so moving on to wide receivers. DJ Chark has just been all over the map. Such high hopes for him going into the season, and it just has never really come to fruition except for in a couple spot starts where a lot of times you didn't even start him because of the preceding games.
Right in the heart, man. Right in the heart.
Completely, right? Is he somebody that's even worth discussing in a Week 16 preview show? You can say no. Okay.
No, absolutely not. And trust me, I would love. DJ Chark was a developing alpha at the the whole last season, and we were so excited to see him with Minshew, and just the way this team is, there is no quarterback with Minshew and Glennon. Right now, you don't have anything that you can trust for Chark to reliably get the ball. Yeah, he's running the most routes. He's leading in air yard share. That's all great, but this iteration of the offense, I can't recommend him at all. I can't recommend anybody in this offense. That goes for Shenault. That goes for Keelan Cole. Even James Robinson. If he plays on that ankle sprain, against Chicago, I'm not starting him. I think there's nobody on this offense I will start this week with any confidence.
Yeah. Against the Bears, I completely agree. And with James Robinson's injury, it'll be interesting to see who they name for their starting quarterback. Because as I saw it earlier today, I think Minshew or Glennon, it was still up in the air. And Doug Marrone still hadn't actually named a starter. So I was going to ask you who's the best one for Chark, but I don't think it matters against his defense. I just sit him.
The best quarterback will come next April.
When they potentially get Trevor Lawrence. Yeah. Thank you, Adam Gase, for that gift to Jacksonville.
Merry Christmas.
All right, so let's go to the entire opposite end of the spectrum, right? And let's talk about Brandon Ayuk. Dude is a stud. I mean, he's a stud in the making. A stud's been born. I don't know what the hell it is, but given the offensive woes that the Niners have gone through, Brandon Ayuk he's been a revelation for that team. And I think everybody that thought that they reached on him in the first round, he seems to be firmly entrenched in that group of rookies as just a baller and totally awesome. But he now gets CJ Beathard going against the division rival Arizona Cardinals in Arizona, which currently has been their home game for the last 2 weeks. So I don't know if that makes a big difference. But does CJ Beathard concern you?
Not really. For me, him and Mullins are interchangeable as far as their effects on the pass catchers. The only thing that I am worried about is kind of the elephant in the room, and that's George Kittle. Yeah. If he's on a snap count, which we've seen Kyle Shanahan say he's not going to get the full work, but who knows? He could get the full work. That could be just coach speak. We don't know, and that's the thing about it. Yeah. But Brandon Ayuk right now is an unquestioned must start, no question about it. I mean, I doubted Brandon Ayuk. I mean, with Debo and Kittle, I did see a stat where I believe the 4 weeks that Kittle, Debo, Samuel, and Ayuk played, Kittle doubled the targets. I think Debo and Ayuk had close to 20, Kittle had 40. So that's one concern that I have when this offense is at full strength is the share. But I do think Ayuk needs to be used more when those guys are healthy. But for right now, the way he's going, last week he had a 33% target share. He had a 34% air yard share. Under no circumstances can you sit him, even with CJ Beathard throwing the ball. Because I think him versus Mullins, I think that's just lateral. I don't think it's an upgrade. I don't think it's a downgrade.
And I think the Niners get their ass kicked. I want to be clear about that. And they're going to be throwing to come back. Like, I don't trust Beathard to not turn the ball over, all that stuff. For anybody that hasn't seen since week 7, the targets for Aiyuk are 7, 10, 14, 9, 16, and 13. I mean, he's just a huge part of that offense. Everything that Kyle Shanahan was hoping for when they picked him at the 13th overall in the draft. So it's something I'm excited for. An Aiyuk jersey may be coming in my future.
Nice.
All right. T.Y. Hilton. T.Y. Hilton has been this seemingly ascendant talent over the last 4 games, whatever it is. And, I think we said on the Sunday show, on Sunday kickoff, that, NBA Jam rules are in effect. He has had 3 games. He is on fire. There's no reason to doubt him, especially he's the Texans slayer and he was going against them. But he didn't fulfill as much as we all hoped he would. That being said, it wasn't as if he was terrible. I mean, he put up 4 for 71, and it should be noted that he had a 41-yard reception that he downed on the 3-yard line and could have been very close to a touchdown, and that obviously changes this entire conversation. But this week he's not playing Tennessee. The Texans. This week he is playing the Steelers with a potentially pissed off Steelers defense. We talked about that game. We're going to talk about it again another time after this. What are you doing with T.Y. this week? I see that you have him at wide receiver 37. I feel like that's pretty disrespectful considering what he's done the last few weeks. So, Kevin, I just have one question, and that's why do you hate T.Y. Hilton?
Man, I don't hate T.Y. Hilton. I just hate this offense and how they need to spread everything so thin. T.Y. Hilton, we saw him just ball out for the last month. And then Zach Pascal comes in when T.Y. Hilton's got the flaming ball in his hands on fire, takes it from him, scores 2 touchdowns last week with a 5 for 79 line. So do I think T.Y. Hilton is still on fire? No, but I think he can get back there. I just don't know with so many mouths to feed in this offense. Jonathan Taylor taking more of a receiving role in this offense. You still got Pittman. You still got Hines. So I don't think there's an alpha to be had in this offense. I do think that, we saw look at the targets last week. Hilton was 6, Pascal was 6, Taylor with 5, Pittman with 3, Hines with 3. There's not one 10 target guy in this offense week to week. The target share is going to get spread out. I do think Hilton is a fringy wide receiver 3 against a Pittsburgh defense that, honestly, I think the Colts are going to win this game, and I think it's more of a Jonathan Taylor game, and we'll talk about him in a minute. But I don't think it's going to be a heavy Colts passing game day. So that's why I've got Hilton a little bit lower than people, than most of the industry, honestly.
Yeah, I would have him around 24 to 26 because of the matchup and because of the question marks. But he's still, he's pretty close to being Rivers' favorite target still. And I think that there is something to be said about a new quarterback coming in and, needing to establish rapport with their quote unquote number 1 wide receiver. And, it takes some time. My concern is that they have been some softer matchups against Tennessee, Houston, the Raiders, and then, Houston again. So we'll see, but I don't know. I think for anybody that's on the fence about it, he is, to me, at worst, a wide receiver 3, and realistically, probably a wide receiver 2, 3 that I'm still willing to play. So,
yeah, I get it.
Let's jump into Jonathan Taylor since we're talking about the Colts. I agree this is going to be a Taylor game. I think I brought this up because I've seen his name being thrown about in various group messages of people not sure what to do because of the Steelers. I think this is just my weekly, I want to include this guy just so that you guys know Kevin and I fully support. He should be in your lineup. You're crazy to take him out of your lineup. Pittsburgh, even if they get Spillane and Williams back, which I think Spillane looks like he's still going to be out. I think Williams is coming back because I think that was COVID. I'm just going to go with it. Like we saw what just happened with Gio Bernard. He was able to run some, and I'm pretty sure we can all safely say Jonathan Taylor is better than Gio Bernard. So, I'm assuming you agree with everything I just said.
Yeah, I mean, right now, it's Taylor and Hines. I mean, you can pretty much write Jordan Wilkins off. He didn't even play a single snap last week for the first time all season. So right now, you can absolutely say it's Jonathan Taylor season. Hines is going to work in, but last week Taylor saw 70% of the snaps, saw 16 carries. He's shouldered a lot of that load, and the big thing with him is he's getting a lot of that pass catching work too. So we saw him get 5 targets. I mean, he's starting to get more of a role there and he's not going to phase out Nyheim Hines, but he absolutely is getting bell cow work here. Jonathan Taylor in a game that, like I said, I believe this is going to be a favorable game script for the Colts against the sliding Steelers.
Yep.
Give me Jonathan Taylor at the very least 20 touches and a good shot for a touchdown, 80-90 yards.
Completely agree. Let's pivot and just answer these 2 questions that came in the chat. I think they kind of fit with what we're doing. So the first question here, DJ Moore or T. Higgins? I'm probably going to go with DJ Moore. I just trust him more. T. Higgins has been great, but I'm probably still going with DJ Moore.
Yeah, I like DJ Moore against Washington. T. Higgins, I just go back to the quarterback. I mean, I'm going back to T. Higgins. Yeah, he's been fantastic. When he's had a quarterback throwing to him, but he's really all over the map otherwise. So just safety, give me DJ Moore. And to the other question, Jalen Hurts is a top 4 play for me this week. Don't get me wrong though, Josh Allen is fantastic. You have to play Jalen Hurts this week. If you have him, you're starting him against Dallas.
Yeah, and I think that the weather's probably a little far away to check on this, but I don't want to even risk the possibility of there being snow and Josh Allen just having to deal with all that stuff. I think their game's on Monday night, if I'm saying that correctly.
In New England, yep.
Yeah, in New England, and there's a storm that's going through. I assume, I don't know what Monday will be like. So I'm going to go Jalen Hurts, just go with the safe play. Like, don't mess around with it. He might not get you 50 like he got me last week, or got a bunch of people, but he's probably going to do pretty damn well against that Dallas team. And they're still, it's a division rival. Like, they're all still playing for it. So yeah, go with Hurts. I've seen this question a ton, specifically Hurts versus Allen. So, all right, next question.
Yeah, let's pull it up here with the fancy new graphics here from StreamYard. Playing JT, hope he scores 3 times. Me too. And half point, do you guys like Melvin Gordon or Marvin Jones? And I think I'm going to lead toward Melvin Gordon here against the Chargers. I think that's it's iffy, but Marvin Jones against Tampa, he could break one, but I think I'm going to go just a little bit safer with Gordon versus Marvin Jones, who I think has the ceiling and the floor are very far apart for me.
And I think that's the perfect way to phrase it, because I lean Marvin Jones, but that's just because Philip Lindsay has been so involved. I think the Broncos are going to win that game, actually. So Marvin is the ceiling, and I think Melvin Gordon's probably the floor play. But man, that's so tough to say, because like when you talk about their ceilings, like Melvin Gordon's ceiling is 60 and 3 touchdowns or something. Like, it's crazy. So I probably lean with Kevin on this one and go with Melvin Gordon. Is Joey Bosa playing this week?
Not sure. The timeshare is something to consider too, but Gordon had 2 touchdowns last week. He's clearly getting the touchdown equity over Philip Lindsay. So if he's going to get those red zone touches, that's going to kind of lean that over to the Gordon side for me.
All right. And then quickly, Dobbins or Gibson. If Gibson plays, you start Gibson. That's not.
I don't think Gibson plays this week.
But if he plays, I think you start him.
If he plays, yes. Yeah.
Gibson
if he
awesome. He's so good.
Yeah. Gibson's fantastic. Yeah, if he plays, I think it's Gibson, no question. But yeah.
All right. So let's jump back into the show doc here. So Jonathan Taylor, you have ranked at RB 15. I don't know if I said that or not, which I feel like is okay. The next guy is just above him and it's DeAndre Swift at RB 13. I felt like that was a little high. I thought that I might have had him down below, and I don't know how the hell I missed it. DeAndre Swift had 4 touchdowns this past week. I'm not misreading that, am I? I remember seeing 2 of them. I don't remember 4.
Yeah, he had 2 receiving and 2
2 rushing. No, 2 receiving, 2 rushing. Yeah. He had 4 total. It blew me away, and I was like, all right, maybe I can see the 13. But against Tampa Bay, they have a solid rush defense. It's not amazing, but it is solid. It's shown cracks at points in the season. 13 feels just a little high, but they're all in the same tier, so I don't really care too much about it. Why are you so high on him? Let's just start with that.
I'm sorry. He scored twice. He had 4 catches, but he scored twice. So as far as DeAndre Swift, I mean, it's his receiving game and Tampa Bay's ability to they can stop Swift on the ground. I think Swift will do enough there on the ground against Tampa, but I think where Swift is going to make his bones is in the receiving game. Yeah. Tampa Bay's allowed 164 PPR points through the air to running backs, the 6th most in the NFL. And he's clearly running the routes over Kerryon Johnson and clearly over Adrian Peterson. There are 4 running backs that have seen 15 touches against the Bucs. Each of them finished RB 13 or better. And granted that's a bit touchdown dependent because they all have scored against Tampa. And we know the risk of starting a running back against Tampa. Look at the running backs that they've just stymied all year. Yeah. But I think DeAndre Swift, with the offense starting to get, built around him and used everything else going through him right now, with no Kenny Golladay, with just a lot of switchover and turmoil in that offense. I think DeAndre Swift is the one constant, and I think that he has the upside for RB1 numbers this week. I have him just outside of it, and I think just because of the usage in the passing game, I think he can approach that kind of ceiling this week.
Yeah, I see it. Man, sometimes you just drop nuggets of knowledge that I'm just like, wow, I did not know that. So I appreciate that about the PPR backs and whatnot. That's fantastic against Tampa Bay. It's interesting to see that since week 4 that DeAndre Swift has either had 4 or 5 targets in every game and has had five for the last 4 games in a row. I gotta remember that when I'm making some bets. So I appreciate all that. I can see it at RB 13. I'm going to sound crazy because I have now, for the next guy, picked out your RB 12. But I think that's a conversation that should be had, and it's Chris Carson. Chris Carson, just like Russell Wilson, who he plays with, is also playing at home against the LA Rams. And the Rams are also really, really good against running backs. This offense has not been anywhere near as good. Sans the Jets game has not been anywhere near as good as it was to start the season. Carlos Hyde, even if it was a longer rush, he's still getting more touches than I think anybody would like. And then Rashad Penny's off of IR. Who knows what that means in terms of the touches, but I think that there's going to be a significant amount of split here against a tough defense where Russell might not be able to move the ball. RB12 feels high for me. He's an RB2 locked and loaded. I'm never going to question that, but I'm probably putting him at a tier below the rookies with Swift and Taylor.
I mean, I get it. I get the trepidation, but I look to last week where, Carlos Hyde vultured him with a 50-yard touchdown, but Carson still played 70% of the snaps and had 80% of the carries, as well as getting 3 targets. So I'm not sure of the share between Rashad Penny. I think it's more Hyde and Penny having to work it out between the two of them versus eating into Chris Carson. We've seen as Carson's been healthy now for the last month, then building his touches back up and building them up, and now he's at where he was as far as his usage. So like I said, 70% of snaps, 80% of carries. So I think he's certainly someone you can be trusted in starting close to that RB1 threshold where I have him. It's a tough matchup against the Rams, but if Russell Wilson is not going to be throwing the ball everywhere, I mean, I believe the stat was in neutral scripts, they were throwing, I believe, 75% of the time in weeks like 1 through 10, and now it's down to close to the high 50s in neutral scripts run pass. So we're seeing a shift, the last few weeks here where they want to run the ball more. They want Chris Carson to kind of be the engine. And then using Russell Wilson, he doesn't have to do it all. He can, if they want to run the offense that way, but he doesn't have to. And I think it makes, it will make them a better team in the long run. Not having to just pass the ball up and down the field. I mean, we know we love DK Metcalf going and mossing guys, and Tyler Lockett hasn't really been a thing for the past almost 2 months now. But fire me up some Chris Carson. I think he's certainly a start, even in a tough matchup where you can feel confident he's going to get the work. He's stayed consistent with 60 to 70 yards on the ground. He's going to get a few targets. He's got a good shot at a touchdown in a divisional game that they need to win, to keep pace there with the Rams. I don't believe they've clinched the division yet, but this game's going to go a long way toward it.
How many seasons has Chris Carson played?
I believe.
What do you think, just off the top of your head?
I think this is 3rd season, I believe.
This is 4th. And I was shocked by that. He just feels like an older running back who's been around for so damn long, even though it's only in the last really 2.5 years he's really taken off. But I don't know. It was surprising to me. I mean, I know he was like a late round pick and kind of his whole story and whatnot, but still was surprising when I saw it. This is his 4th year. So, okay, I got one last one. And I kind of just need you to figure this out for me, and that's Zeke versus Pollard. Right now you have Tony Pollard as your RB6. That's with Zeke out of the rankings because you're not sure if he's going to play. What do you do if Zeke plays? Obviously, if he doesn't play, fire up Pollard, no questions. Anybody that has him, you won the lottery, like, go get him. But if Zeke plays, how do you rank both of them generally, since you haven't worked all the way through it, and will you actually start either of them?
If Zeke is playing, I mean, they paid the guy $90 million. They're going to be playing him. He's going to get the majority of snaps between him and Pollard. There is a question, though, between Pollard and whether he's earned a larger slice of the pie. I mean, talent-wise, anybody would say absolutely, certainly after last week. If they're both if they're both playing, if Zeke is there, we've seen him be just a completely touchdown dependent RB2. I would say against Philly, the way they're playing, they're both kind of flex plays for me. And I wouldn't mind starting Pollard in the flex. I wouldn't mind starting Zeke. He's going to be getting 12 to 15 touches at the very least. There's just only a little bit of clarity here, but not only in Zeke's health, but the role that Pollard has when both backs are healthy. Seeing as how he was just a man among boys last week, Tony Pollard was. So I don't think this is anything anybody's figured out right now. We just kind of got to see it play out.
If you haven't seen Tony Pollard's 40-yard touchdown run against my beloved Niners, you got to go watch it. It was so damn impressive. I still have no idea. Niners, terrible tackling, but whatever. Good job, Tony, on that one. So I think everybody really does need to be watching out. I mean, if you're in your finals, you're probably somebody that's hooked enough to be looking at updates and whatnot. But last I saw, like Zeke is trending to play. So this is going to be kind of an iffy situation. And as you know, the Philly rush D isn't terrible. They're not fantastic. I think they're better in my head than they are in reality, but they are still pretty good. So, yeah, I'm just nervous about it. So just kind of cautious for everybody unless it's Pollard on his own.
Yeah, it's tough.
I hope it's not weird. So we're going to jump to tight ends, and I hope it's not weird that I'm bringing these two guys back up again. But that's Irv Smith and Cole Kmet. We were pretty high on both of them. Kevin in particular was very high on Cole Kmet last week, and he only had 2 targets. Like, I don't really know what was going on there because it was a very competitive game. They obviously saw something else. And is this just David Montgomery was just unleashed yet again, and so they didn't really need their pass catchers? How do you – let's unpack, their games, because since they played against each other, Irv Smith and Cole Kmet, and then what we want to do for Week 16.
Well, I mean, you see 2 targets out of Cole Kmet, but Trubisky only threw the ball 21 times. So, I kind of throw that one out, but Kmet played 100% of the snaps last week. So it's a tight end. That's rare.
Yeah.
So, we've seen the passing of the baton, so to speak. And yeah, I believe Graham had did Graham have the touchdown? I believe he did. So that kind of keeps Graham not relevant per se because of Cole Kmet, but it's something to, certainly consider. But I do think Cole Kmet, the previous 2 weeks, he's had 7 targets. I would say throw this game out the window against Jacksonville. Okay. This is a matchup that you want to target tight ends. They've allowed league high 2.36 PPR points per target to tight ends. So 11 different tight ends finished with what's that?
That's one hell of a stat.
Right. 11 different tight ends have finished with 47 yards or a touchdown against the Jaguars. So there's a pretty healthy floor for Kmet and for Trubisky. He's going to have to throw the ball a little more than 21 times. I would certainly hope against Jacksonville. I think this is a really good matchup for anybody that has Kmet. If they're worried about their tight end situation, I wouldn't be worried here. I'm actually going to bring Kmet up a little bit more in my rankings. I have him at tight end 15, and that might have been a little bit of an overreaction against last week.
Yeah.
So I'm going to bump him up a little more, and I'm going to bump up Irv Smith too because Kyle Rudolph still out. We know Irv Smith is pretty much the 3rd option in the passing game behind Jefferson and Thielen. 86% of the routes he ran last week. He's fantastic. I mean, he is what we were hoping we would see in the beginning of the year, and kind of hope that he would pass by Kyle Rudolph. But Kyle Rudolph was just kind of that barnacle that would just not go away. Now Kyle Rudolph is off the field, and we're seeing Irv Smith just take over a little bit here.
Yeah.
I still like him, and I think we're going to start seeing more of this, and hopefully they can cut ties with Rudolph, and we can see Irv Smith blossom. He's only 22, I believe. So a lot of good football ahead of Irv Smith. The matchup is a bit concerning for the Saints, but I think with Cousins likely having to throw the ball quite a bit, I think Irv Smith still has a close to tight end 1, tight end 2, kind of that straddling value.
Yeah, I agree with both of those. I also agree with Kmet and Irv. Kmet moving up and Irv moving up a little bit. And it's hard not to overreact when you see just 2 targets. I think that Irv is, even in this game, going against a tough matchup with the Saints. I actually like him this week just because of that tough matchup. My wife is texting me saying she thinks you broke her toe. That's fantastic. So, all right, we'll move on from that. And we talked about him before, and that was George Kittle. This is just me saying, because a lot of people have asked the same question. If George Kittle plays, you start him. You take your lumps if you're wrong, because there could be a snap count or whatever. But also, he is, at worst, the 3rd best fantasy tight end that you can in football right now. And
Yeah.
at best, he's the number one. I mean, he's probably not number one because Travis Kelce is on a different level right now. But I mean, he's in that 1-2 kind of tier of their own, with Waller probably just like in a tier right there too. You start him, and if it doesn't work out, I'm sorry, that sucks. Like whatever, but he's that good that he can easily go off and get you 6 for 85 and 2 without blinking an eye.
Yeah, I mean, if you're starting the Dalton Schultzes and Eric Ebrons of the world, where you're just banking on 4 for 40 and maybe a trip into the end zone, and you need upside, and you've got George Kittle coming off of IR, by all means. I mean, George Kittle, like you said, at worst, a top 3 tight end right now. And even in a limited capacity, if he doesn't play a full complement of routes and snaps, he could still finish as a tight end 1. I mean, we're not here to tell you how George Kittle is. Yeah. The reason we're talking about him is because of the variables surrounding not only the Niners. I'm not even sure why he's playing. Honestly,
I agree.
At the end of the day, they're competitive football players, and it is what it is. So we're going to have George Kittle playing a complement of snaps. So I think if you have him, you're holding on to him in the hopes of him winning you a title, or, you know, clearly he didn't play week 15 where he probably could have. But yeah, I think if you've got Kittle, you're going to start him. If you have a better option, that might be worth a discussion. But if you're, like I said, if you're starting like the Dalton Schultzes and Eric Ebrons and Austin Hoopers, you know, roll the dice on your upside with George Kittle.
At this point, I would play Kelce. I would play Waller. I would play Logan Thomas.
Fant, Tunyon.
I don't know.
I wouldn't play. I'd play Kittle over Hawkinson.
I don't know if I would play Tunyon over Kittle or not. They're pretty even. Fant is really tough to say. Andrews, probably I go with Andrews just because. But I mean, like we're talking about a top 6, top 7 tight end right there. So use that for whatever you need to if you're thinking of sitting Kittle if he does play.
I was just going to ask you. I'll ask you a quick question. Knowing Breeze has, Breeze is back in, that pretty much brings Jared Cook back into discussion. Would you start Kittle or Jared Cook?
I personally don't think that does a ton for Cook. It moves him up, but he's still going to be in that where he always lives, that like 7 to 9, 7 to 10 range. I would go Kittle over Cook. Michael Thomas being out definitely helps some. And the fact that now that Traquan Smith also just went on IR today.
It's Sanders, Kamara, and Cook right now against Minnesota, which is a plus matchup.
Damn.
Because I'm going to be writing my start, sits, and sleepers article, and Jared Cook is going to be my screaming start this week.
Yeah. I was looking at his numbers, like, because I was thinking of doing some player props on him, on Jared Cook, and his numbers aren't anything like that.
Whatever the prop is, it's too low, baby.
He doesn't have the upside that the other like top 6, 7 guys do. Like he's not somebody, as of course now they say this, but 6 for 100 and a touchdown is not really a Jared Cook line. It's
but
2 for
70 is
a touchdown. Yeah. He hasn't had 6 catches in a while, man.
Yeah, but Taysom Hill's also.
That's true.
I can't even say he's been throwing him the ball because he really hasn't.
Yeah. That's a tough one for me. Maybe go Cook. I don't know. You probably kind of have to go Cook if that's your decision because they play tomorrow, whereas Kittle's on Saturday. But I just want to get into this question real quick. Just the last question before we finish out with some defenses. So in the championship game and player I'm facing is a really good team. I have Thielen, Ayuk, Tyreek. Those are your 3. With Jarvis, and you need to start 3. For me, it's Thielen, Ayuk, and Tyreek. I'm not going to question that. Jarvis is a great wide receiver 2. All of those other ones are wide receiver 1s.
And he's getting the Jets, so I can understand the question, but I don't think you can't. Start your studs. Thielen, Ayuk, Tyreek. Yeah, call it a day.
If you really want to if you want to flip a coin, flip the Jarvis Ayuk. I may have been a little hasty in saying Ayuk over Jarvis because Jarvis is playing.
I don't think that's hasty at all. I got
think
Ayuk is a top 12 guy. You have to play him right now.
The Browns are going to blow out the Jets. They're not the Rams. They're not.
They might not even need to. Baker Mayfield may not even pass the ball 25 times.
Totally, total Nick Chubb game. And then you said you have Lamar and or Josh Allen. It's a really tough one. I wanted to say Lamar because it's the Giants, but you're going to go Lamar.
Lamar has not finished the last 3 weeks, I believe, below QB6.
Yeah, I mean, they're still playing to be in the playoffs, whereas Josh Allen doesn't necessarily have to do anything spectacular, and he still could get that number 2 seed.
Yeah, Lamar is playing. I mean, we've seen this playoff schedule for the Ravens, and Lamar is been fantastic in that. I think this is a matchup. I mean, if you drafted Lamar in likely the second or third round, and you've been disappointed, but the last 3 weeks, if you've had him, if you're in the playoffs and you have Lamar Jackson, congratulations, first of all, because you're in the minority as far as, teams that likely still are alive and have Lamar. So if you're starting him, I believe he has a QB5, QB6, and a QB1 finish the last 3 weeks. So roll Lamar 100%.
Yeah, totally. I was going to talk about the Saints D. I actually don't really care to now. I think that they're solid enough that you're probably starting them no matter what. But Steelers D. I think Steelers D, and we'll finish here. And that's, what do you do with them? The Colts have a solid offense. The Steelers should be getting Vince Williams back, as we talked about earlier, but Spillane is still out, so they're going to be down at least one linebacker, potentially down a couple cornerbacks. You have him at DST 15, and I actually think that that's spot on. I think that if you can pivot, you should, but if you can't pivot, then don't force this. They're still going to probably get a pick or two against Rivers, but I also think that they might get lit up on the scoreboard. Thoughts?
Yeah. I mean, they had the potential every week for sacks and turnovers. I mean, Rivers isn't exactly, he's a sitting duck. Granted, they have a great offensive line, but I mean, the upside is limited considering that they're going to, I would say, likely be at the wrong end of game script.
Yeah.
So the way the Steelers offense is playing, they're not doing themselves any favors, having to rely on the defense to make stop after stop after stop if the Steelers aren't going to put up 20 points on offense. So, I think that's a good spot for them. Granted, anything can happen. We could see a interception return for a touchdown or fumble, and that skews it the other way completely and pretty much automatically makes them a top 6 defense on the week just based on the touchdown. But sacks, turnovers, but not much upside there. But we'll see. You have to play them if you have them.
Agreed. A lot of people talking about the Cardinals as a possible pivot, and I think that's a solid play. One that probably is not owned, and that's the Chargers. If you want to go for the high upside, Drew Lock, if he's on, you're going to get burned probably for negative points. But if he's Drew Lock and he's off, you're potentially getting, pick sixes or a few picks and a few sacks. So Chargers probably be my other pivot away from the Steelers.
Yeah, I'm looking at the defenses right now. A lot of them are highly owned, highly rostered. I mean, don't have to even talk about the Browns. They got probably the best matchup of the week against the Jets. Other than that, at Dallas, with the way the offense is playing, putting more pressure on teams having to catch up. Another team that may be a bit of a dark horse, I would say the Texans against Cincinnati, with how their quarterback issues have been going. So that, other than that, a lot of teams like Carolina, I wouldn't trust them that well over Washington, but their quarterback issues themselves.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. So I think we ran the gamut here, I think, and got on 55 minutes. I think we did pretty good here.
I won't get yelled at too much from my wife.
No, if you send her to me, say, tell her, this.
Kevin told me it was okay.
Then I'll send Aaron, and then that'll be fun, and I'll just put my feet up and have some eggnog and see how the hell that goes. But Yeah. Anything else you want to add, Gary, before we get out of here and go enjoy our holiday festivities?
No, man, just Merry Christmas. Anybody that's still listening, we will be back on Sunday for our normal 10 a.m. Central kickoff show. Injuries, weather, start sit questions. We'll answer any questions that come in. If you have any questions for tomorrow or for Saturday, Kevin and I are both, our DMs are always open at K Tompkins II and at Gary Haddo, the number 1. And I think that's it.
Sounds good. Yeah. At 10 a.m. Central Time, Sunday morning, we'll be on. Yeah. Like Gary said, talking injuries, talking, weather, talking your start and sit questions, because it's week 16. You're either in the semifinals or in the finals. So we want to help you get to that promised land. We don't want you to, we don't want you to choke now that you're here. So we're going to do our best to get you home. So, but for the next day, Christmas Eve, Christmas Day, happy holidays. Be safe, everybody. Don't dip into that eggnog too much. Or at least if you do, get an Uber, get a Lyft, do what you got to do. But we will be back on Sunday. Go to fightingchancefantasy.com. Like we said, we have articles, rankings, you name it. My start sits and sleepers will be out with a bow on it tomorrow for Christmas. So be on the lookout for that. But other than for Gary Haddo, I'm Kevin Tompkins. Have a great holiday, and we will see you on Sunday. Good luck in week 16.
Good luck.